Okay, and then I close this. I also have my chat, live chat. What else do I need to see here? I think that's good. I'll just move this down here actually. Okay. There we go. Now, how are we doing, everyone? We're just going live, and
Heck yeah.
trying to stream after not streaming for quite some time, hosting one of these. But we are going to let people come on in. How's everyone doing today? How do I see people's?
Didn't ask me how I'm doing.
Yeah, how are you doing? How's your day?
I'm doing all right, man. It's all good. I got the in-laws over, so they're watching the baby right now, which is cool.
That's amazing. That's always the best.
Yeah. What about you? How you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Just typical day. Worked on some content, finishing up some nice collab content. Have a really long form piece on the vertical mouse that's going to be hopefully coming out tomorrow, but or not tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow actually. But we shall see.
Any teasers or spoilers you can give me?
No, I mean it's just like pretty much like the complete guide on all things vertical mouse, how to make better decisions about the input device and or like any input devices to minimize stress
Hmm.
where's in hand. But like I wrote a really long post about it and I just turned it into a video.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's gonna be good. What's up, Miracle Taco? How's it going, man?
What makes a miracle taco?
What does make a miracle taco? Probably some carne asada, probably some pico de gallo, probably
Onion, cilantro,
onion, cilantro,
obviously.
all of that. Yeah,
Yeah, lime. Okay, yeah.
and then all of it cooked at a street
You
vendor.
need, yeah, you need the street card,
Yeah,
otherwise it's not legit.
that's that's truly what a miracle taco is. So, um, yeah, how's everything? All the planning for the weekend for you?
It's a little bit chaotic. So for those of you who don't know, it's our baby daughter's first birthday, and we're
Yeah,
trying
mine
to
and
plan.
Casey's. Mine and Casey's baby daughter. Exactly.
Yeah. And so we got a wild one theme, but yeah, we ordered these like fancy cookies, and they were supposed to arrive yesterday, and they have not shown up yet. So we're getting a little bit nervous about that.
Okay.
uh
Okay.
like they were, I don't know, hand drawn frosting things, I don't know, from like Etsy or wherever, I don't know, Lucy found it. And they haven't come in yet, and then we messaged the seller and totally been ghosting us, and we're like,
Damn,
that's sketchy.
that's fucked up.
So anyway, trying to see if we can pivot on some snacks and some things. But anyway, yeah, the planning is whatever it is. I want it to go well, but I mean, she's 1 year old. I'm sure she's not going to really remember it. And I just want everyone to have a good, kind of relaxed and casual time, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Your party was fun, man. I like you guys like pulled out all the stops.
I mean, yeah, we went pretty hard with the princess.
Yeah,
Hold
heck
on,
yeah.
I'm just posting and we'll take. Hey, if there's anyone interested, everyone. There's right now, Masterclass.
I don't know if this matters or not, but it does look slightly choppy or laggy on my Zoom screen. I don't
Okay.
know if,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
guys, how's our quality here? How's our quality looking? Can we get some ones in the chat if we're looking good, or some big thumbs up? If it's choppy, then I probably have to change the bitrate up, but I think we should be good.
Okay.
Um,
Might just be me.
but if not, then let me just change this. Turn off my webcam. So, let me see if I can get my side angle up and working. Okay, there we go. So
All right.
yeah, okay. My microphone is there. Oh, it's about to get louder. That's why there's some audio issues there, but now it's good. You can hear Casey, everything. Yeah, we're gonna start very soon. I just want to have a little bit more people come through. You guys, right now, actually, we'll get into that in a little bit, but let me just fix my side angle real fast. Let's see if it works. Oh, you guys see that? It's a little green. It'll turn up. There we go. Boom.
Oh, wow.
Boom. The side angle. Just for effect. For special effects. And now I gotta turn on my cam. Okay. We will be starting here in the next 15 seconds after I turn on this camera. How's everyone doing today? Yes, this will be available. We are actually going to have it be available, and we're going to edit it into more digestible parts onto the email list. So we have just very recently launched entire sort of like nutrition-based email list that Casey has written a lot of things for. So you guys can really learn a lot of the basics about nutrition, supplementation, all the things and past seminars that he's done is all going to be eventually within that email list and within some of the archives that we're setting up through that list in itself. But we'll drop that link shortly. Actually, we do have that link. There we go. So for anyone who wants to join the list and wants to get information about this specific seminar as well as some of the other seminars, go ahead and join. Oops, I guess I can't chat. I can't tag everyone on Voltaic. But okay, let's get started. So today we're here to talk about, as you guys can clearly see, a weight loss for gamers. And it's something that, we've, over the past 7 to 8 years, as we've worked specifically with some esports teams, this is always sort of a goal that some of the players that we work with want to work on for their own overall health in terms of trying to improve their body composition, or during off season they want to get a little bit more healthy, develop some better habits around exercise, and then for their diet, they often want to really work on ways that they can not only help their cognitive function but lose weight. And so that's the main reason why we wanted to bring you guys all in here. And I think we can do a very quick intro before we go into this very brief question. I'm Matt. I'm a physical therapist, also a strength and conditioning specialist, and essentially over the past decade, Casey and I have worked together with a bunch of different esports teams and across every single major esports title to help their players perform better, develop better habits, develop better mental models in terms of how they approach their lifestyle health, so that they can perform better in game, as well as just be more healthy. And so I'll let Casey kind of introduce himself and take it away from here, essentially.
Yeah. First off, super excited to be doing this. I feel like it's been a long time coming. We haven't actually done a designated weight loss webinar before, but we've done a whole bunch of other topics, and I think this is one that is pretty frequently requested. So really excited to be doing it finally. But anyway, so a little bit about myself. I'm the director of nutrition with 1HP, which you guys already know about. And, we've coordinated and worked with a lot of professional teams, and also just regular gamers and cognitive space workers who are looking to improve. I do some other academic work as well. So I do work in clinical research, doing peer review. I teach at a couple universities, and I've, in my past worked with a lot of traditional athletes as well, so including like professional NBA, NFL, those kind of guys, and gold medaling Olympians and things like that. And Matt kind of touched on this, but trying to modify body composition is a big goal for many individuals. And it's something that in the nutrition world we have a lot of power to support. And a lot of times people think, oh, I can, out train a bad diet and, do some crazy stuff. But really, a lot of what actually drives body composition changes is the nutrition component. And so I think this is something that we can cover and talk about. And anyway, yeah, I'm excited to be doing it. So I'll shut up now.
Yeah, I guess before we go on, hopefully this sounds better for my mic, and it keeps kind of reducing a little bit. So, is Casey's microphone also sounding good as of now? And just let us know, and then I'll let Casey take it away again.
Okay. Am I sounding okay to you?
Oh, to me, you sound amazing.
Okay. So, just kind of a little bit of an obvious question, I suppose. Do you want to lose weight? And I'm assuming if you're here, you do. And so, just to kind of put us all on the same page here, we're all trying to get to the same goal, which is we're trying to lose some fat. And I did write lose weight here, but I do want to just distinguish between the two, which is weight loss versus fat loss. And weight loss is kind of easy. You can lose water weight, you can lose muscle weight. I could chop off a leg, we could call it a day. But what a lot of people really want is they actually want fat loss, right? And so the stuff that I'll be talking about, there are a lot of protocols out there that exist and get very quick weight loss, but fat loss is capped at a certain rate. And we want to maximize fat loss rates and maximize lean tissue retention. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping that we can go over today with a lot of the strategies here. And just to frame this problem, it's kind of big. So if we look at the United States and even internationally, actually in the United States it's a little bit worse than this, but internationally we see that over 1 in 3 gamers are overweight or obese. In the United States this number is a little bit higher. Actually it's closer to like 40-50%, and that's kind of bad. So depending on where you are, regardless, it's still a pretty common problem, and I think a lot of people really struggle with this, and I don't actually blame anyone for being wherever they're at. It's more if you have this problem, you acknowledge you have this problem, and you're complaining about it, and then you're doing nothing about it, then we need to have a conversation. But anyway, so it's not uncommon. Everyone is starting, and yeah, let's move into it. So the first thing to frame this is just what's the number one misconception, and I kind of hinted at this when I was talking about this idea between fat loss and weight loss. And Matt's going hard with his bands. I like it. We're staying active. And does anyone have any ideas about some maybe misconceptions with weight loss?
What have you guys heard, right? What are the common things you guys hear about weight loss?
Yeah.
Like, what are the ways to lose weight? Or maybe have you guys tried losing weight before? And what are some of the things you guys have tried? So just drop those in the chat and we'll kind of go through.
I can't see the chat, by the way, so I don't know if you can let me know
yeah,
what they're saying.
I will let you know. I'll let you know.
Okay.
They were all saying your microphone's great, mine is a little soft.
Okay. Should I spill beans, or were there answers?
Let's see. No answers just yet, but
Okay.
Maybe there's typically a bit of a delay. So if you guys want to drop what your guys' thoughts in the chat, or we can just get into it, which is.
So, on average, gamers and cognitive workers tend to be smart folks, tend to be smarter individuals. I would say the average IQ is a little bit higher in the gamer crowd than in the non-gamer crowd. And what that tends to do is that tends to mean that you guys are smart enough to be dangerous and to get exposed to and kind of do some little bit of deep dives into, hey, what can actually work to try to lose fat loss or try to lose fat. And what this ends up doing is this kind of opens the door for you to be exposed to a lot of these trendy fad diets that are in a whole lot of different places. And there's a lot of really smart people who are pushing these. And um, what I want to talk about today is not this, because those on average work until they don't. And anyone who's tried them knows, hey, I could do it for a little bit. I tried it out. I did the 30-day crash diet thing. I got phenomenal results. And then, boom, I regained it all. And that's a very common story that I hear from a lot of people. And it's because that diet archetype, that strict trendy diet, was not sustainable in the long term. And that's really what you want, is you want something that you can adhere for the rest of your life, really, right? Like you want to get to a body composition that you're comfortable with, and then you're just chilling for the rest of your life. Like that's the best case scenario. And so a lot of people think they can suffer through this like strict, ridiculous diet, but a lot of times that has its own complications and own problems that just make it not good, not healthy, not safe, and ineffective in the long term. So I really want to shy away from those and move into, some more sustainable patterns.
We do have some comments, or some misconceptions that they were mentioning,
Hmm.
which were, lots of running or cardio.
Mm.
People
Yep.
think weight loss is steady and constant.
Oh, yeah.
Ab workouts will burn belly fat, which is not true. And then they kind of touched on exactly what you said, which is like, hey, there's a lot of misinformation from fitness influencers who want to essentially get views with clickbait.
Yeah. I want to actually comment on two of those because I think those are really interesting. So the first one, absolutely, you can't outtrain a bad diet. I sometimes wish it were true. I would be out of a job and it'd be much easier if you could, but the reality is the food we eat does matter. The other thing I wanted to, what was the second one? I
The
remember what the
second one
third one was.
was running and
Oh,
cardio.
wait, sorry. What was
Yeah.
the first one?
It was weight loss is steady and constant.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that one. So I thought, sorry, I flip-flopped those. Yeah, so that one, everyone wants it to be this perfect beeline, linearly, hey, I'm losing half a pound a day or whatever it is every single day. And biology is super messy. So even if you do everything correctly, if you do everything absolutely correctly, there's going to be days where your weight pops up. And there might be days where your weight goes down a lot more and then it pops back up. And so usually what ends up happening is you see this kind of like up and down, up and down, up and down situation, but the trend line is moving down in the right direction. But nobody ever has the perfectly linear experience. That's completely unrealistic and bogus. And it really doesn't doozy on people's mental when they see it go up and down and they're obsessing over the weight. And there are some strategies that maybe I can talk about on the back end for navigating that, but yeah, I don't want to get stuck too much on this point, but yeah, it's a really good one to call out. So anyway, uh, in this presentation, by the way, I made a bunch of AI images just to have some fun with it, and so you might see these with the little prompts on the side. And this is what Grok thinks is the most unhealthy meal in the world. So
Yeah,
interesting.
I mean bacon, plus ice cream, plus fries and like chicken nuggets, just like just a bowl of butter or something here. I don't know,
Yeah,
like a powdered butter.
right.
Uh, anyways, oh yeah, sorry. So, what are the
Yeah,
consequences if you follow these fad diets?
yeah, and I think so the consequences of the fad diets as well as just being at an unhealthy body weight for too long. And I think there's been a little bit of a pushback, right? So in recent time there's been something called like the health at every size movement and all this kind of stuff. But honestly and truthfully, the science does say that, central adiposity, having a big belly, a lot of fat in your midsection, this is problematic for your health. And this does hurt your health in the long term and it impacts your performance in the short term. And so there are numerous consequences to this. And it all kind of falls under that umbrella, which is, not to scare people, but you on average die sooner. You on average get medical conditions that you otherwise wouldn't have, and you on average have worse performance in both the short and long term. And in the realm of esports, we see this manifests rather significantly in all sorts of arenas. And so one of the things we work on in the off season is to try to manage this. Um, And there's a lot of case studies. We could have picked any one of like 100 of these, but this Uzi was pretty well known at the time, one of the best, one of the OG legends and League of Legends. And he ended up retiring due to uncontrolled diabetes, and noting that his nutrition was playing a big factor in this. And there were other physical symptoms that were manifesting, but basically his body was shutting down, and he was forced to retire.
Yeah.
And it's pretty sad. And I know you guys did a pretty deep analysis into this. But what I will say is that in the literature and what we see from a lot of teams and players is that people who have too much of this unhealthy fat, usually we would call that visceral adipose tissue, which just means like fat that's around your organs and kind of gunking them up and interfering with their capacity. It adds all this like pro-inflammatory molecules to your body. It messes with your brain. Your brain starts to lose its capacity for long-term memory formation. Attention goes out the door. Executive function sucks. You increase your risk for injury and illness, and you lose the ability to metabolize all the foodstuffs that you would normally have been fine with eating. So yeah, we hear these like really heartbreaking, tragic stories. Uzi was like, I can't remember how old he was. He was like in his early 20s when he retired, right?
Pretty young, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, dang, you have someone retiring in their early 20s, and
Should never happen.
that literally should never happen.
Should
Like,
never
that shouldn't ever
happen for any gaming, or even like regular desk workers, right? Like, there's a lot of people that get not only due to nutritional health, but like physical health wise, they get so deconditioned and limited to the point where they can't even type or spend more than 30 minutes typing. And that's a lot of the population that we work with, but it's sad and it should never happen. And our goal is really hoping to educate more people earlier on in the process, so they can adopt some of these better habits early on, so that doesn't happen. And so that's part of the reason why we want to present and host more of these, so that you guys can learn, and hopefully take one or two things away from the seminar, so that you guys can just have better long-term nutritional health, on top of all the things we always talk about regularly with physical health. And so before we actually get started and sort of deep dive into everything, I want to go over 3 quick things. We're going to try to make this as engaging as possible, meaning we want to ask you guys questions, and if you guys are willing to, you guys can respond based on some of the questions that we ask, because we're going to maybe bust some myths. We're going to have some Q&A at the end, and then at the very end, we're also going to be having a special offer for anyone that stays all the way to the end. That is something we're pretty proud of, that Casey's worked really hard on as well. And then, this is the AI version of Casey has been really hard at work, as you guys can see over here, looking pretty good as an anime character.
I should have worn a blue button up. I almost wore a full blue button up.
You really
I know.
Missed opportunity.
Super missed opportunity. Okay, all right. So just to frame this, because I don't want to waste anybody's time, so just want to make sure that everyone who is here because they're kind of supposed to be here and want to be here. And so just to make sure that I'm correctly, you're here for the right reasons. The first one is, people who are listening hopefully have the goal of some fat loss, and you're trying to get some tips on how to do that. And you probably, hopefully, acknowledge that eating better can help you out with that. If you don't acknowledge that eating better can help you out, then you probably just want to bounce right now. A lot of people here probably feel like the nutrition component is overwhelming for one reason or another, or maybe they've tried some things in the past and it just hasn't stuck. That's a fairly common situation. And again, the big thing is really just, hopefully you're looking to actively get started on making some changes. Like I said, if you're not actively looking to make some changes, then maybe just watch the recording whenever you are ready to make some changes. But I'm going to be going through some tips and strategies for things that you can actually do right now. And then Matt said he's in love with me, which is cool. Maybe if there's anyone else who's in love with me too, that would warm my heart.
Yeah, nice.
That would warm my heart a little bit.
yeah, nice. 1 or 5 depending on how good this course is. And then Rolly Rossi says, can you simplify what we're supposed to do in a few steps? Yeah, eat less, move more. Okay, that's the TLDR. And then, 1 through 5, we got a lot of fives in the chat. Love that. Casey's very lovable, as you can see. And so, if not five, hopefully one of the other ones, so you guys can get some value out of this. Now, let's go over this man. This very
Yeah.
it's actually not a real picture of this person because we wanted to protect his identity. But Casey, you can tell him about Mick.
Yeah. So Mick is actually his name, but we did want to protect his identity, and you can kind of toggle between the two if you want to show some people. But
Oh yeah.
I input his story with anonymous data into AI, and I said, give me a before and after photo for Mick after putting it in, and so I just spit these out, and I thought they were hilarious. Um, but anyway, so Mick, he came to me, and basically he's very type A individual. He does work full time, but he also likes to dunk on his friends and kind of be as good as he possibly can be. And so
With gaming
with gaming, excuse me. Um,
or basketball, whatever.
no, he doesn't play basketball. Yeah, with gaming, and he had tried a lot of diets in the past. He was having these kind of large weight swings where he would do these aggressive diets that we kind of touched on in the past, and then he'd gain it all back. And this happened through multiple cycles across many years, and he was starting to notice that in addition to the weight loss never sticking, he was starting to see dips in his energy level and also just progressively more and more of what he called the brain fog creeping up. And so his work was actually suffering. And then in the evening time, he just didn't have enough time even to put in any kind of like he used to do things like aim train and actually try to practice for the games that he was playing. And he didn't really have the mental bandwidth to do that anymore. And one of the things that we talked about was he would spend probably like half an hour, maybe even an hour sometimes, just like going through Uber Eats and DoorDash, trying to figure out what to actually eat. And then by then, he'd gotten all sorts of like decision fatigue, and yeah, it just kind of sucked for him. So I felt really bad. So that's what he came to me for, was like, hey, just help me out, get me out of this rut, and we can go to the after one if we want.
Well, before we do,
Oh,
can
okay.
any of you guys relate to any of this? Right? Like, have you guys experienced some brain fog? One thing I'm pretty curious about is how much you guys actually order food, right? How much you guys actually get takeout. And let us know, right? If you guys are working from home, if you're a software engineer, what do you guys do for work for the people that are actually in this chat? Are you guys ordering food, once a day, twice a day, 4 times a day? If you're a psychopath, or is it like twice a week, 3 times a week? Let us know, because it is something I'm quite curious about. Takeout is very expensive. It is. It is. But it's interesting for the while you guys are answering. A lot of professional gamers, while they do have a stipend, they just don't know how to cook, right? So they order all the time.
Yeah, it's pretty
So
common.
got it.
I would say at the esports level, a lot of them they'll be given the stipend, and they're just kind of left to their own devices while they're at the gaming house or whatever, and so they just order in food because the cooking skills are a little bit lacking. I sometimes wish they weren't, obviously. So anyway, one of the things that we did with him was we ended up adjusting his just the balance that he was eating, because he was kind of almost like doom scrolling the Uber Eats and the DoorDash. And what ended up happening was there was no consistency between, like, some days it would be a pizza, some days it would be, like a Chipotle bowl, and it was just all over the place. And so we needed to get some consistency back, and we wanted to lock down some of these choices that he was already opting for, but try to make those be a little bit better because that was a little bit more sustainable for him. He didn't have a whole lot of time to cook and prep and do these kind of things. But one, so I mean, it was a two-step process really. Was one, we had to analyze his intake, and so I did this like food analysis where I input all of his food logs and food data and figured out what his micronutrient balance and macronutrient balance were. And then from there, I was like, okay, well, this is what you're already doing. Let's work with what you're already doing. And then we tried to piece together some options for his that worked for his real life. So from like his Uber Eats and stuff like that. And it worked. um, so he did get some pretty impressive results, honestly. He ended up losing quite a bit of weight, and it took probably a couple months, but he was saying people were saying he looked a lot thinner, and that his brain fog was almost completely gone. There were a couple other things that we layered on top of this, like some supplement strategies and things like that, but most of it came about from just getting the consistency back with his diet.
Do you remember the time scale of when that happened?
So his weight loss was a little bit unusual. It was faster, and I hesitate to say what his results were because I don't want people to think that if they follow their diet that like they can get the same results because he's a little bit of an outlier. But I can't. It was like 8 weeks, and I want to say he lost close to like 20 pounds or something like
What?
that.
That's
And
insane.
yeah, normally I tell people a good rate is like half a pound to a pound and a half per
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
That's very sustainable and doable. And so he ended up he was just an outlier. It was a little bit weird. And but yeah, his big thing was he had these like really, really, really high calorie days. And then also the other thing that was a big factor was he had a lot of water retention too, in addition, just because of his high sodium intake from a lot of the takeout he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a combo factor there. But anyway, yeah, so he was fun. He was a cool guy to work with. I still try to message him every now and again just to make sure he's doing all right. But he yeah, so we analyze and then we modify within your constraints. Um, yeah, so I don't know, there's my Twitter, my ex. I don't like talking about myself, and I'm really bad at social media. And Matt's always trying to get me on social. I'm trying, guys. But you know, anyway, I have worked with a lot of pro teams. I've worked with a lot of professional athletes, and I do a lot of stuff. And anyway, just to put it out there that in the cognitive space, we see all sorts of individuals with the same problems, and there are very real and obvious solutions. And yeah. So, all right, what are we going to talk about today? What actually drives weight loss? Some different types of eating patterns, the most common ones that I see, some of the barriers to actually getting sustainable weight loss, right? Sustainability is huge. And then how can you actually get started? And then just a couple extra bonus strategies at the end.
Let's bust some myths though. Let's do a little bit of a quick myth buster, and then there were some responses about how much of them order out. I think most of them are um, they aren't ordering too much because some live in rural areas, no food ordering service, work from home, but eat a lot of prepackaged things, always counting calories. Um, yeah, takeout is expensive though, so you know it's rare I think in some cases, but there are some people that you know tend to order 1, 2, 3 times a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, yeah. And so the other thing I want to highlight about that too is um, when people have a pattern where they're making most of their own food, I think that is superior. Like I love when I hear someone is making most of their own food. Kind of actually going back to Mick a little bit is the idea of inconsistent eating patterns. So a lot of times what ends up happening is maybe you're good across the week and then you go crazy on the weekend and then you end up spinning your wheels. And a lot of times it's those like handful of takeout meals that you eat across the weekend or maybe you go out with the boys or whatever it is, and then that sets you back. And a lot of people are like, man, I was so good across the week, I've earned it. And so even if you're just ordering takeout not super often, I do think that at least especially in Mick's case, who was ordering daily, that's something that is worth looking at for um, someone's pattern.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So myths. Don't have time. Um, I hear this a lot with nutrition. And I might challenge you and say, well, you're putting in a lot of time into other areas. A lot of times people will spend hours and hours in the gym, for example, trying to outtrain their bad diet, and then spend a split second thinking about their food choices. Um, but the reality is, just because something is healthy doesn't necessarily mean that it takes a lot of time. Or sorry, maybe healthy is the wrong word. Maybe just because something is conducive for your goals doesn't necessarily mean it has to take a lot of time. And a lot of people end up wasting more time if they're driving to, go pick up something if they don't want to order takeout, or maybe, in Mick's case, they're like scrolling through Uber Eats for like an hour, or maybe you're spending hours meal prepping. You spend like 2 to 3 hours meal prepping on the weekends, and that is a good time saver. So, this idea of it being too timely or taking too much time to pay attention to your nutrition, I usually would challenge people and push back on that. Like I think people, everyone has to eat, and you have to put some time into it. And a lot of people are like, man, I wish I just didn't have to do that. And I've run into people who are like, I wish I could just have like the food injected into my veins, and then I can just keep doing what I'm doing.
That'd be so nice.
I've also heard a lot of people who are like, let me just not eat and only do one meal a day because I don't have the time in the rest of the day to do it. So I hear a lot of like stuff, and people usually, one of the biggest complaints about food is just the time it takes. And I do, as a dietitian, I do genuinely believe that food is special, and I think that it has an emotional meaning. I think it has a social, a cultural meaning,
Mm-hmm.
and I think people should appreciate that a little bit more, and use food as a vehicle for happiness, and to help you be healthy and the best version of yourself. But maybe that's me standing on a soapbox a little bit too much. But anyway, yeah. So the idea that it takes too much time is a little bit silly. The other thing is you can't afford it. I also think that that's a little bit silly. There are definitely low cost options, and a lot of times people are spending money on a lot of silly things anyway that have no bearing whatsoever on their actual health or performance, and buying new cosmetics and skins and stuff, not to call anybody out. But I think a lot of times people spend money and on silly things, and then people are like, oh, I can't afford healthy food because healthy food's too expensive. And I think that's a big misconception also.
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
someone spent $1 million on a CS2 skin, so like they could probably spend some of that on some better food options.
Yeah. I'll actually give a small nod real quick here. There was a girl who was a dietitian, and she was getting her PhD, and she wanted to create a cookbook that was, I'll have to pull it up after this, but she wanted to create a cookbook for her thesis, that was based off of the food stamp budget, so like $4 a day. And she made a healthy cookbook based off of those constraints and was able to get it done. So it's very possible. Admittedly, you might have to compromise on taste a little bit if you're going that low in cost, but it's still possible to eat healthy on a shoestring budget.
Can you guys relate to any of these myths, by the way, as we continue to go through them? Just let us know in the chat.
Yeah, and then this is the last one too, which is like, I need to cut out all my favorite foods to lose weight. I mean, sure, if your favorite food is, like a six pack of beer and Skittles or something, then it's probably I might have you cut out some of that. But most people um, will end up reporting that once they get situated eating more fulfilling and healthy foods, that they actually enjoy it more. And there is some complicated neuroscience behind this, where a lot of the junk food items are carefully crafted to trigger these like reward pathways in your brain. And there is some conditioning components there, but in any case, I think you can definitely eat healthy and eat foods that are enjoyable, and also not costing a whole lot. And you know, all these photos I pulled up are just like food options from different places, and I was like, man, all these look really good to me. So I just kind of picked the first ones that came across my searches from my own like takeout orders and stuff. And I was like,
Yeah,
dang, these all look good.
sugarfish.
Oh yeah, sugarfish. Yeah, I love sugarfish. So anyway, yeah, I think you don't necessarily have to cut out foods that you all of your favorite foods, and it doesn't have to cost a whole lot. I do know delivery fees are getting a little bit up there though, and Chipotle costs an arm and a leg if you get like the guac these days, but still works. Okay, so what is actually driving weight loss? Is it calories? Is it macros? Is it habits? What is it? And this was a diagram that I saw from a recent research article where someone tried to map everything that actually played into weight loss and fat loss. And you can't read it because you can't even read it even if it was full screen. And that's kind of the idea. Just it is a huge multifactorial mess, and there's all sorts of stuff that plays into this and whether or not you are actually going to get the results that you want. But I, if you go forward, I'm not sure if the slide I added actually added or not. Oh yeah, it is cool. Yeah. So this was the thing that I heard and I genuinely believe, which is the best diet in the world is something that you can actually stick to. It doesn't matter if the diet is 100% perfect if you can follow it 0% of the time. I would rather you follow a subpar diet 100% of the time than a perfect diet 0% of the time. And so what that really means is you need something that works with your life, with your realities, with your constraints. And a good test is just to ask yourself, it's like, oh, hey, I heard about this 30-day challenge. Well, inherently, I would say that that passes the test that I'm about to give you. But the usual test is, could you see yourself following this diet for the rest of your life? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, you probably need to look elsewhere. Because a lot of times for fat loss, you have to be in it for the long haul. And if you already are nervous about it on the front end before you even start, that you could do this for a long time, it's doomed. It is destined to fail. So you want something that genuinely just feels too easy. Like that's the best case scenario is if you say it feels easy, this matches exactly with my existing pattern. And so to kind of subsume all of the weight loss literature into one key point, we would really just say the best diet, because that's what everyone asks me. It's like, oh, what's the best diet? What's the best diet? I say, well, it's the one that you can actually do. What can you actually do? And yeah, so that's pretty much the totality of fat loss literature, honestly. And then we look into implementation and all this and that. Um, so we have a bunch of different types of eating patterns. Were there slides in between here, or is this, did we miss some?
No, this is
Okay, this is it? Okay. All right. Um, I'm losing my mind a little bit. Maybe I need a snack. Uh, so,
snack break.
snack break, yeah. Um, so there's several different eating patterns that I see that are pretty typical in the cognitive worker, gamer, esports space. The first one is kind of like the multitasker. And so there's someone who basically eats while they're working or eats while distracted, essentially. And the literature on this is actually quite shocking. Um, People will overeat a crazy amount, like as high as 30% more calories consumed in a meal if you do it while distracted versus if you are intentionally eating. And so they've done these fun studies where like they'll put a bowl of like infinite refilling chips or like chicken wings or something next to you, and like there's a little slot on the bottom, and so like it just kind of like adds more as you're eating, and people are watching a movie or whatever. And people will eat so much more when they're distracted than when actually just sitting down to focus and like pay attention to the food that they're eating. And this is crazy huge. This is repeatable. We see this in the literature all the time. If you're distracted while you're eating, you eat more calories, and this tends to lead to passive overconsumption and just accidental weight gain. And the other layer to this is the mental state with which you are ingesting the food. And this is not on the slide, but um, the mental state with which you approach a meal matters a whole lot. So, as an example, if you're sitting down and you're having, some like a takeout burger and you eat that by yourself while you're stressed out and working on your computer, versus if you go out to eat with your closest friends and family and you have a burger and you're all happy and joyful. Those two mental statuses are drastically different. And I see you running away. Yeah, those two mental statuses are drastically different, and that actually leads to a difference in capability for digestion, absorption, and metabolism. And the stressed out version, the distracted version of you who's eating a meal, processes it much worse than the person who eats it while being intentional with it. So a lot of times, anyway, kind of the solution here is to pre-portion your meals out or have like single serve packagings and all this kind of stuff. Because if you give yourself the big bag of, I'm guilty of this with pistachios. Those are like my absolute favorite nuts, and cashews. If you put the entire thing right here, it's all gone. It doesn't matter. Like it is completely gone. I don't care that it was literally 10,000 calories in that tub. Like I will eat all of it. And yeah, so you want to get like the single serves and you want to prepackage it so that way you don't accidentally overeat. The next one is the snacker. So I actually reviewed a research article recently that was looking at food advertisements to gamers across multiple platforms. It was like Facebook gaming, Twitch, and there was one other one. But anyways, it was food advertisements targeted at gamers specifically. And the heavy hitters were things like the most commonly were energy drinks, Doritos, Skittles, Goldfish, and there was one other one. But basically, it was all junk food. It was basically all junk food. And a lot of times gamers like well, there's a subset of people. So there was that one, which was, you're eating distracted, which kind of goes hand in hand with this, which is people want to have a little bit of a snack and so they graze. But on average, the snacks that people choose tend to be lacking in what we would call nutrient density. And this, because snacks on average are consumed as, they're snacky or grazing, they lend themselves really nicely to distracted eating, which goes back to the first one, which has a lot of problems and ends up leading to accidental weight gain. So a lot of times people will be like, yeah, my meals are so good. And then you kind of look at it and they don't realize that they're just getting all these extra sneaky calories in that are adding literally anywhere from like 500. I've seen a guy who like didn't even realize he was consuming an extra like 1,500 calories in a day because he was having these snacks, and then anytime he walked by the peanut butter jar, he'd like go in and have a dollop of peanut butter, and he was like, those are nothing. They don't. And then I was like, bro, one dollop of peanut butter is like 200 calories. You do that 4 times in a day, and then you're having this other snack thing that you didn't tell me about. No wonder, Um, so yeah, that stuff adds up, and I think one of the things that I would challenge listeners to do is, and is my rule of thumb, one, if you feel like you're hungry in between meals, it's a sign your meals are lacking in balance. And that kind of goes back to Mick. You want to have nice balanced meals. It's better to have 3 square meals a day than it is to just like graze throughout the day. So your meals are not satisfying enough. They're not loaded up with the things that we really want. And the two things that we really want in a meal to be nice and hearty are protein and fiber. And so if you say, hey, my meals are loaded up with protein and fiber, then okay, here's what we do. So for the snacks, your rule is you're allowed to have a snack as long as it has protein in it, plus something else. So you can do like a protein and a carb. In the case, maybe it's like a yogurt and some berries, or maybe it's a protein and a fat, and maybe it's like some jerky and some string cheese. And then veg, which are basically fiber, are always fair game. And so I think if you eliminated all snack foods and swapped them out for those, and then really focused on your intentional meals, that really protects a lot of people, the people who are snackers.
Are you guys snackers? That's the question. Are you guys any of these? The multitasker, the snacker, or the feast or famine?
Yeah. So the
Me.
feast or
This is me.
so feast or famine is the last type, which is kind of the opposite of the first two, which is you say, screw it, I'm not eating, I'm too focused, I'm in the zone, I'm too stressed, I don't got enough time, I'm not going to eat. And so you skip all your meals. And then, uh-oh, end of day comes and you're ravenous. And so you end up just having this huge binge of a meal at nighttime. And there's a interesting observation in humans, which is that at the start of a day are something called circadian rhythms. Our circadian rhythms are basically like these biological clocks that optimize us at certain time points in the day. And to summarize the entirety of circadian rhythms and chrononutrition, which is the study of nutrition and timing, it's basically humans are diurnal creatures, which means we're meant to be awake and alive and doing stuff in the daytime, and we're meant to be asleep and not doing anything at nighttime. This is in contrast to nocturnal creatures. So we have diurnal and nocturnal. Nocturnal's awake at night and then asleep in the day. Humans are diurnal, or awake in the day and asleep at night. And at the start of a day, your capacity for digestion and absorption and utilization of the foods you eat is maximized. So we see our insulin sensitivity is the highest. If you had a binge of a meal at breakfast versus if you had that exact same meal and you had it at 2 in the morning, your body is extremely forgiving in the morning and hates you for all time at 2 a.m. if you eat it there. But the average person is skipping breakfast, light lunch, maybe having a couple snacks and then binging at dinner, and then maybe they need some extra snacks at night. And that's when your body is telling you, I need to be asleep and resting and digesting, not eating more foods. You are basically like that of a diabetic. Your body metabolically is like that of a diabetic in the evening time. And so this feast or famine cycle, you're skipping everything, you binge. Usually that's a problem in itself, but then it's compounded by the fact that your body can't actually process and deal with those nutrients. So this is
Binge
another
in the
big
morning,
problem.
right?
So yeah, so literally the take home is like if you are going to binge, um, try to have your binges be in the morning instead. And I'm a fan of like, okay, if I'm going out with people, why not schedule, like a weekend brunch? And that's going to be a lot cheaper and a lot more forgiving on the body. You can also get your mimosas on or whatever if that's your thing. Yeah. All right. So now we can talk about some barriers to weight loss with some extra solutions thrown in. So let's dive in. I need a little sip of water. So one of them, and I think this kind of sets the groundwork for a lot of it and kind of ties back to what we are talking about at the beginning, is just this idea of I can get super fast results because I saw my favorite influencer got it. Um, and you have these unrealistic expectations. You want that perfectly linear weight loss drop. You want to lose 20 pounds yesterday. And what ends up happening is you try to chase these crazy dreams and it works for like a week or two, maybe a month even, and then all of a sudden you burn out, you fall off the wagon and you get right back to square one. And so I really do think having reasonable expectations on the front end is going to protect you from falling into a lot of traps. And so I already mentioned, a good sustainable rate of weight loss is anywhere from half a pound to a pound and a half per week. If you're uh, really, really big, so like morbidly obese, that rate can be a little bit higher, and that's fine. But for most people who are maybe more in the overweight category instead of the morbidly obese category, you're probably going to fall into this range. Um, and then also just being honest and expecting that it's going to take a long time. Okay, fat loss and weight loss are hard goals that require a lot of serious effort, consistency, and patience. There's an analogy that I like, which is if you, a lot of times people will spend, 10, 20 years gaining a bunch of weight slowly, and then they expect to lose it in like a week or something. And if the universe was totally fair, it would take you 10 years to lose that same fat that you gained across those 10 years. But it's not. And with smart nutrition, we can actually speed this up and lose it, across months and maybe like a year or two. But still, that's a long time to be committed to doing something. And so I just want to make sure that you're aware, like, okay, the rates are modest. If you're losing more, if you say, hey, my buddy lost 10 pounds in a week, then I'm going to say, I believe you. He did lose 10 pounds in a week, but he didn't lose 10 pounds of fat in a week. That would be physiologically impossible unless he went and got like, some liposuction or something. So yes, you can lose weight faster, but we have caps on how much fat we can lose. And so slow and steady does win the race. The next thing is, we want to work with wherever you're at. So inconsistent habits. You need something that works for your life. And one of the things that I like to talk about with the clients who I have as the people that I'm doing like long-term coaching with is the habit loop. And so the habit loop is basically it's the mechanism through which almost every single action in your life is being carried out by you. There's some cue, there's some craving, there's a response to the craving, and then there's a reward, and that reinforces the whole thing from start to finish. If there was no reward, it wouldn't perpetuate itself. But so what happens is you have some cue. Maybe it's I saw a food advertisement, and so then I got some craving for some snacks, and then I went and ate the chips that were in my kitchen, and then I got a little dopamine hit. That would be an example of a negative habit loop that happens pretty regularly. People see advertisements for food, they get hungry, they go eat the thing that's most similar to the thing that they got the advertisement for. You can short circuit this and reframe it and build off of the same cues and cravings to get different responses in your brain. So some classic ones are things like, okay, well, I'm hungry. Maybe instead of this like psychological craving that I have, or the sweet craving, the sweet tooth that I got because I saw an ad for, some Cold Stone ice cream or something. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe drink some water and wait it out 20 minutes and then see what happens. You could do something like that. Some people will go for walks. Some people will do all sorts of things. But the real important element is you have to do something consistently. And when you do a nutrition pattern consistently, it actually ends up getting hardwired into your brain. And so a lot of times people will be like, man, I just have these bad habits, I get stressed out and I eat, that kind of thing. But what's just as hard to break as bad habits? Good habits. So you can also make and hardwire into yourself good habits. And the only way to do that is to consistently do something that you want to be doing. So we can force a habit into ourselves. And the time it takes to force a habit into yourself is somewhere around 10 to 12 weeks. So if you do a consistent nutrition pattern for 10 to 12 weeks, you will build and hardwire into your brain that habit. So you really do have to you can't do a 30-day crash diet because that's not enough time to rewire your brain. So you do need to give it several months before you can actually start to have this built into yourself. So make sure you're in it for a long time and you're serious about it, but you can force good habits on yourself just like bad habits.
Yeah, I think we can pause for a little bit and just kind of gauge some of your guys' thoughts. Oh, and your camera went
Oh,
out.
what happened?
Because I hope you guys have noticed that with a lot of these recommendations, we haven't gone into any of the real like tactical. Hey, this style works like this, and this style works like this, and I mean, we're gonna get to that in the next few slides in terms of like how to actually start, but a lot of what limits people in actually losing weight is the basic stuff of setting up your environment, setting up your expectations, setting up your habits, and being intentional about planning to build a habit, right? Maybe like you can think of nutritional health as, or good nutrition or weight losing weight is just building a good habit around your food choices. And so I just wanted to stop to get some of your guys' thoughts on all of this, since I'm sure you guys are like, why haven't we talked about macros, or if it fits your macros approach, or fasting, right? Like those are all tactical things that, yes, we can probably answer those questions at the end, but you'll realize that when Casey works with his clients every single day, day in, day out, a lot of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is sort of managing their mental approach to eating.
Yeah. So I will say right now that probably 100% of the people in the audience know what to do. Like they have the knowledge. They have the knowledge already. And so the thing that I'm really trying to get at here, there was a quote that I heard from like a billionaire. He said, if knowledge was all that was required, we'd all be billionaires with six packs, because, you just eat less, make a calorie deficit, you buy low, you sell high, and it's a done deal. But the actual implementation of that is a lot trickier, right? And so I'm spending a lot of time talking about this stuff, but this is actually the important stuff. And I think a lot of people, it's not sexy, but a lot of people kind of write it off.
No one talks about this.
Yeah.
Literally every single thing that you'll find online is like, hey, this is the best diet that you can lose, 10 pounds in 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, that's literally what people do, and that's what people sell. And it is unfortunate because it develops a poor relationship with food, and I don't like that as a dietitian, which is kind of a segue to this one, which is the emotional eaters. A lot of times, food is a reward for some hard task. Our ancient cavemen, had to hunt and work and do all sorts of hard stuff to get their food. And, we got some natural dopamine when we were finally able to eat. Food keeps us alive. It's a reward for the work that you just put in. And nowadays we use it to help cope and manage with our emotions or boredom. And that's tough. And so there are ways to try to deal with it, but it kind of comes back to, this almost, if this is a real issue, is potentially beyond the scope of the dietitian. Sometimes we actually loop in psychologists and therapists, because you actually have to really focus on like the cognitive, like some CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy kind of side, to really reframe that relationship with food that a lot of people have. And a lot of times people don't even realize that they have a negative relationship with food. It's just kind of like, oh, this is just the way it is. This is just what I do. But it could actually be a sign of something a little bit more that needs to be focused on. And again, a lot of it is the mental. Like it really is the mental for something like this. Yep. So, yeah.
But you guys are here because you guys probably want some tactical things.
Yeah.
And we'll answer those questions. We had questions like, and keep in mind, right? Like this question, we kind of covered it in a few slides earlier, right? Assuming you can do all the diets, which one is best? Right?
Yeah.
It's hard to really answer that because everyone has their individual circumstance or individual like physiology that we have to account for, and their what your actual starting point is, and we have to be able to assess that to determine what might be best. But ultimately, like Casey said, it's the one that you're going to stick to.
Yeah, typically what would happen is like if I was to really dial in a recommendation for someone, I'd have to sit down with you for like an hour first and just ask you every single question about you first before I can make my best educated guess for what would actually work. And by the way, I am kind of an open book, so I heard a couple people in the chat, I think, who I recognize. Feel free to shoot me a DM and ask me questions like anytime. I like to help people with this, and it's kind of my soapbox, my hill that I die on. So if you ever do have questions, just feel free to hit me up. But the tongue-in-cheek answer is the best one is the one that you can stick to. Now here's a brass tacks recommendation. So I did make a calculator that are based on formulas for cognitive workers instead of for the set. So if you go online and you type in, hey, how many calories do I need in a day?
Your
a lot of
traditional
those,
TDE calculator, right?
yeah, a lot of those are built off of population averages and or clinical and or um, like elderly or middle-aged people. So the populations that are using those are usually not really well applicable to gamers or cognitive workers. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to make one for us that is a little bit closer to what I would really recommend for a cognitive worker, a student, a gamer, a software engineer, whatever, whoever you are that's using your brain a lot. And so I put together this calculator. It's very bare bones, right? It's not a fancy calculator, but you can use it, and the formulas are legit. And I made it for this specific population. Okay, so feel free to check it out and kind of see, what your needs are. And so I think the first step always for any intervention is you have to assess and figure out where you're at right now, right? Like you need to know where am I at right now, and then from there I can decide where I'm going to be going. But if you don't know where you're at, then it's really hard. So what this does is this will tell you a good split for your calories, your macros, and then pair this up with some food tracking data. So there's a lot of free apps out there. MyFitnessPal is probably the most famous one. Chronometer is another one that's pretty good because it also, to some degree, tracks micronutrients, which is kind of cool. But what I would say is compare the numbers that my calculator gives you. Don't use the MyFitnessPal ones because those ones are bad. And then log a couple days worth of food and see how close you are. So assess yourself. So step one is to just assess and see where you're at. And to do a real fair assessment, by the way, you have to include one of those bad days, at least like one of those bad days. So like on the weekend, I'm out with the boys, we have pizza and beer or something. Like you got to include one of those days just to see how over it actually puts you. So step one is assess.
Oh,
Whoops.
camera again.
Why does my camera keep going out? Is it overheating in here? It's getting a little toasty. I don't know.
Yeah, you're back.
Hello. So step two is just get a little bit better. And on average, for people who are looking for fat loss, the thing is, when you look at your food log, there's going to be something that stands out to you. I guarantee it. There's going to be one or two items that really just kind of jump out at you. When you do an honest assessment, you're going to kind of look at it and you're like, all right, yeah, I'm having a 6-pack every night, or oh yeah, all right, I'm eating a whole bag of Doritos, or whatever it is. So there's going to be something on your list that's going to stand out to you almost immediately. Just change one of those things that is standing out as being particularly high calorie. That's all you got to do. I'm not asking you to completely 180 your diet. Just take one of those things and replace it with something that is a little bit more macro friendly. Okay. And there was a really important word that I just used there, and it was replace, not eliminate. So what a lot of people end up doing is they say, oh yeah, I have to cut out my ice cream. I eat ice cream at night all the time. And that's cutting out, eliminating, all that. Those are bad words. That's not what you want to do. There's a couple things that go into this. One is humans are creatures of habit, and if your body is expecting you to be eating something at a particular time, you need to continue to eat something at a particular time. The other thing, which is probably more relevant and an interesting quirk in humans, is we actually, when you look at humans, they tend to eat on average the same volume or weight of food in any given day. And so what ends up happening is people who strictly eliminate, they will, because they're consuming less volume, less weight of food in a day, their body is going to give them an overwhelming sense of extra hunger and hangriness and moodiness and just really trying to fight you on this. But if you maintain the exact same volume and weight of food that you eat in a day, the exact same amount, your body almost says, I don't even notice that I'm in a deficit now all of a sudden. So you take something that's high calorie and you replace, not eliminate, you replace it with something that's a little bit lower calorie. And the chart on the right actually has, if you have some specific cravings for like sugary or sweet things, then you can try replacing some of these as examples. So like a soda, you know, maybe you go for like a 0 cal. Some chips, maybe you'd go for like some nuts or you know, some. My favorite for the crunchy and is plain popcorn. You can eat like 6 cups of popcorn of plain popcorn at like 100 calories. It's kind of nuts how much plain popcorn you can eat. And you can season that up with all sorts of herbs and spices and stuff. I see a lot of people will. I saw one guy, he was doing like Tabasco on it, and it's a little weird for me, but you know, people go, yeah.
Trader Joe's has this really good popcorn. But it's probably not super healthy. It's like really sweet.
Yeah.
I need to pull up the link. I'll drop it in the chat. I'll sabotage people.
So that's the thing. So you pick one thing and you do it consistently. And if you can do it for a few weeks and you feel really good about it, then maybe you pick a second thing. But remember, it does take like 10 to 12 weeks to build a new nutrition habit. So you can't go too hard. I would say you're at most replacing 2 to 3 things per every 3 months. And so really just try to get it down pat and then move on to the next thing once you're really, really good at it. But there should be something obvious in your own diet that stands out to you. All right, and then so I mentioned that we eat the same volume of food in a day. When we look at the 3 macros, when we look at protein, carbs, and fats, by far the most important for human life is protein. And not to get morbid, but we know this because you can see what happens if you go to true zero with any of these and you see what happens to the human. So as an example, if you go to 0 carbs, you can live a long, probably unhealthy life, but you can live a long, full life if you go 0 carbs. If you go 0 fat, you will starve to death, but kind of slowly. And this is because there are things called essential fatty acids. You'll actually develop something that's called rabbit starvation. It's actually a pretty gruesome way to go. This has formerly happened in these very wintry ecosystems. It gets its name because the only thing they could eat is rabbits, and they have a lot of protein on them, but rabbits are very lean, and so there's no fat, and so they'll literally eat like 5 pounds of rabbit and still be ravenous because they're not getting their essential fats in, and so anyway, you die eventually, and it's pretty sucky. And if we go 0 protein, you die very quickly. So you die the fastest on that slide scale if you go 0 protein. And we have a lot of essential amino acids, which come from protein. And so why am I bringing this up? Well, it's because a human, because our, our DNA is set up to survive, and if protein is our most important macronutrient, it actually keeps tabs on how much protein you eat in a day. So you have a little counter in your brain that says, oh, I've eaten some protein. Oh, I've eaten some protein. Cool. And it like keeps tabs on this. And if you front load your protein in a day, what ends up happening is your brain gets to be a little bit more relaxed and take away the food noise in your brain and these like food seeking behaviors, because it says, hey, I'm chilling. I've eaten all the things that keep me alive. I don't need to aggressively hunt or forage for anything else. And so the protein directly tells the brain to relax and remove some of this food seeking behavior. But also protein in and of itself is also the most satiating of the macronutrients. And one of the biggest failures that people have when they go on a diet is caused by them being hungry. And so hunger can be beaten by high satiety foods, and protein by itself is the highest satiety macro. So you have a 1-2 punch with protein that works out phenomenally. Man, I don't know why my camera keeps going out. Sorry. So you have a nice 1-2 punch with protein that keeps you full and also gives your brain a sigh of relief on the chemical side of things. So eat your protein and make sure that every single one of your meals is protein focused. And the other thing, there's a little rule, which I'll throw in here, which is I like to advocate for people to follow the rule of 30 and 30, which is have 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking up. And what this does is everything that I just said. And it just sets your day up for success and sets your brain up to relax, and also um, makes you feel fuller the rest of the day. So people who have a high protein breakfast, they will eat significantly less calories at lunch. We've tested this. You test a high carb breakfast versus a high protein breakfast. How many calories you eat at lunch? You eat a significantly less amount of calories at lunch spontaneously without even noticing. You eat less calories later on in your subsequent meals. So try to get a lot of protein early on in the day, and that's why I put this graphic here. Was, hey, what are some good high protein breakfast ideas? Doesn't have to be fancy. You can do some pretty easy things, but really one of the key elements is just get that protein in early and get as much of it as you can, and you'll be feeling happy. Um, I'm sure people have had the experience where, you can eat an entire bowl of like plain pasta and still want more. But I would challenge you to eat plain boiled chicken and see how much of that you can get through. You will be feeling real full real fast. You might get through, like, I don't know, maybe you can eat one full rotisserie chicken. I don't know. Anyway, so some extra bonus strategies. Sometimes there's a difference between a hunger cue and a craving. So genuine hunger is brought about because your body says, I am genuinely hungry and I need this for my survival. Cravings are, I'm bored, I'm emotional, I just saw an ad, I'm being tricked, I need a dopamine drip, whatever. And so a good rule of thumb is, okay, I want to go grab a snack right now. Let's do the 20-minute rule. And the 20-minute rule just says, I'm going to pause, I'm going to wait 20 minutes. And if I still want it after 20 minutes, okay, fair game. But I'm going to wait 20 minutes because a lot of times it was just in the moment I was a little bit bored. I talked about how the end of the day is the worst time to be having binges. The beginning time is the best time to be having big old meals. And so we generally want to try to avoid really late night food. If you have a rule that says, hey, I'm not going to eat any food after dinner, that helps out a lot of people. In general, if you can eat all of your food with at least 3 hours before bedtime, that's going to help with your sleep quality, and also just going to help with your own metabolic functionings. Liquid calories. Liquid calories offer the least satiety compared to eaten calories. So if you drink 500 calories versus if you eat 500 calories, you have almost no satiety from the liquid calories. So if you just say, hey, I'm never going to have a liquid calorie again, you know, then some people might push back and say, oh, what about protein shakes? What about protein smoothies? Blah, blah, blah. Sure, those are fine, fair game. But on average, if you're struggling with hunger, I would even tell the people who are having the protein shakes to sub it for maybe like a protein bar, because that is going to offer more satiety than the protein drink. And then a lot of people also just need a little hit of sweetness. Some zero cal chewing gum does a lot of work, honestly. So try it out.
Yeah, so we obviously went over a lot today. Casey is just now finally catching his breath, getting some water. So I wanted to ask you guys, right? Obviously, there are a lot of even more nuanced tactical things that we can go over that will help with weight loss. But to the best of our ability, we wanted to go over a lot of these barriers and mental approaches that are limiting the progress of a majority of the people that Casey works with, and also just kind of reminding you guys, like, hey, these are the really small stepwise actions that you guys can start to take if you're just beginning your journey. I know some of you guys have said, hey, I already lost a lot of weight. This probably is just a repeat and a reminder for what are the most important things to remember or think about as you guys are going through the journey, or maybe like revisiting the idea of weight loss if you guys are here and wanted to kind of pick up a few tips or reminders or mental models that can continue to serve you as you guys manage your nutritional health. So just remember, hey, like TLDR, right? It was like to actually start tracking your macros, understanding your baseline, using some sort of app to track that. Build these small consistent habits, by replacing things that allow you to have a little less overall calories throughout the day, which will allow you to lose weight. And in order to not eat as much, you have more protein, right? Because that keeps you guys more full throughout the majority of the day, so that you aren't feeling the need to snack, feeling the need to do all of these other things, and then all of the little mini tactical things of 20-minute rule for hunger checks, you know, especially the bedtime thing. That's definitely been a problem with me in the past. And then liquid calories. Yep, I think like this is a really common one where people suggest or ask about shakes, and I think the protein bar tip is really helpful. And then yeah, this also helps as well. Getting chewing gum, really testing some of these things out to really see if they can start to push you again stepwise in the right direction, so you can begin to notice some better results for your weight loss than really trying to expect the 10 pounds in 2 weeks, or like the really excessive weight loss stories. And here, I prepared for this situation, guys. Boom. See? No, Casey, have a picture. Don't worry. I prepared. Okay,
Jeez.
there. Now, okay, he's back. Now, what do you guys think, or what was the best thing you guys learned today? And hey, if you didn't learn anything, then you can also let us know that.
Yeah,
But I really, yeah,
shoot me a DM and flame me. That's okay. I'm sorry.
I really do want to know what you guys took away from this presentation, because one, we can improve on it in the future, but two, we want to make sure that, hey, we thought a certain thing in terms of how we wanted to present the information, and we wanted to know what was something you took away from this. So please share. Yeah, I think I'll bring forward more to emphasis on macros. I've had success from just raw calorie counting and nothing else, but I'm plateauing a bit, so I need a little bit of a change to push through. Facepalm Interactive, no worries, man. This is going to be cut up in a way, and it's going to be distributed through an email, through our actual email campaign that's through Casey's, that Casey has written up. I'll just kind of drop that in the chat here. So if you guys are interested in getting the recording and sort of cut up with all of the, I guess, gaps taken out, you guys can sign up here. Sign up with that link. Okay, so, and then feel free to also drop some questions before I sort of share with you guys this offer that I mentioned in the beginning of this. But one, Salmonella for Skin says, I think the biggest thing is just putting emphasis on consistency and finding something to stick with. Definitely his biggest struggle.
Yeah.
His or her biggest struggle.
Honestly, that's number one. Is if I did a slice of everyone who's come to me and told me that they struggled with weight loss in the past, you can always boil it down to and distill it to, it just wasn't sustainable for me. That's always it. Like, that's always the answer. So if you can fix that, then you have the solution, literally.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions or any other thoughts that you guys have relating to nutrition, relating to diet, relating to anything we reviewed today? And so someone just joined in near the end of this, and he's like, oh, hopefully there's a portion about yo-yo dieting. And you definitely covered, we didn't directly call it yo-yo dieting, but we definitely covered the pattern of behavior that, leads to yo-yo dieting, where, it works for one, and ultimately it comes about sustainability, right? I think that was the main topic of that conversation.
Yeah, and I'll do an extra 2 little points on yo-yo dieting, which are rather unfortunate for the people who have fallen into that trap. And it's through no fault of their own. It's usually arising from some of the issues that we spoke about earlier. But there are, oh my God, camera. There are 2 points that I want to make about that. So one is that can actually have some long-term consequences on your metabolism and physiology in a negative way. And so one example of that is, all right, it's just not working.
Don't worry, I have this.
I don't know why it's not working. So the big takeaway and the big consequence to this is, a lot of time, let's say you weighed 200 pounds, you went up to 300 pounds, and then you come back down to 200 pounds. You at 200 pounds before that journey versus you after that journey, the TDE, the amount of calories you need in a day, is actually different, even if everything else is the same. And it works against
people who have gone through that journey. And I work with a lot of fighters, like I've worked with a lot of like UFC fighters and things like that who have to go through these aggressive weight cut protocols. And what ends up happening is your metabolism is slightly suppressed to the tune of about 10%. So if your baseline energy needs were 2,000 calories before for the same level of activity, you gain a bunch of weight and then you lose a bunch of weight, and then you're like, oh, I'm just going to go right back to eating what I was eating before at the 2,000 calorie number. Unfortunately, you're going to slowly start creeping up, and that's what a lot of people say. It was like, oh, I was eating the same thing I was before, but I started creeping up. And it's because they didn't account for this, essentially this metabolic suppression that happened. And so the people who make it back down again, you actually have to slice 10% off the top, and that makes it a little bit harder to adhere to. But that's just the nature of the beast sometimes. And so that's not a positive message I can give people, but it is something that you can pre-plan for.
Yeah, so facepalm, we'll probably stick around near the end of this and we can talk. I'll have Casey kind of address some of the things that you're mentioning. He just asked some questions about the content and shared a little bit more about his own like nutrition background and health. I think
Yeah, he can DM me.
yeah, you can feel free to DM, but we can, if you guys are also open to it and want to hear, Casey's response, and Casey, if you have time, then we can kind of do a overview or brief thoughts. But I do want to really, share with you guys, again, if it's okay with you guys, this product that essentially Casey has spent the past like 2 to 3 months really like working together to kind of build and write and try to put something together that will get you guys started more than just what we shared here. I think what we shared here sets up the stage mentally and sets up the expectations for how you guys can think about it. And through this product, it's called Top Tier Takeout. It's a guide that Casey wrote to help gamers really lose weight effectively and do it without all this complicated meal prep, giving out takeout. I know a lot of you guys didn't have takeout, but a lot of you guys did have snacks. So there's information in there about how to actually tactically manage the snacks, and supporting everything that was mentioned today about having those expectations. And these are the same things that have worked for a lot of the clients that Casey has worked with, where they weren't able to stick to a diet. They tried everything else and it didn't work. They relied on takeout, right? And that's a lot of the professional gamers that we work with that also don't have time. They don't want to track or count calories or track every bite, right? Because sometimes that can be a really high or difficult ask for someone that has never done it before to all of a sudden have to begin tracking every single meal, thinking about all the calories, maybe doing the math, even though apps have simplified it. Or you feel like your situation is pretty different, right? We've tried, and Casey has tried specifically to have it address all of these. And so if you guys are, and I want to mention, like, if you guys are here and you're just looking for something that's just gonna help you, a guy that would just be like, oh, just follow this and you'll lose a bunch of weight. This is not this guide, right? Like, our goal is to always help people become a bit more autonomous, learn a little bit more about their bodies, learn all of these mental models so that you can make the better decisions for yourself in the future. Right? This is not for you if you want a quick fix. Okay, and so this is Casey's background, right? Like, Casey, you can talk a little bit more about the product itself, and I'll drop the link in the chat. But yeah, I mean, it's all based on a lot of the evidence and research that you've performed yourself.
Yeah, I'll just mention that I've been in esports for like a decade now, and I've been genuinely trying to advance the field. Like, I'm a published author. I try to publish and teach other medical practitioners how to operate in this space, and I speak at a lot of conferences and things like that. And my goal, truthfully, is to kind of fight the misinformation and bullshit that's out there. I think that because there are no true nutrition professionals in this space, it's allowed a lot of bad actors to come in and try to spread BS.
Yeah.
And so for me, it has been like, hey, let's do a deep dive into this. I think there is some good information for a unique population, because you guys are a little bit different. And try to craft what actually makes sense for the population. And so I've spent a lot of time, like I said, like helping out with textbooks and, training up medical practitioners and all this and that. But the goal really is to just come up with something that works for gamers and is targeted for them and is based on the science. And so that was the most common ask that I got from all of the pro esports teams I was working with was just like, hey, can you choose what to order for me, and that way I don't have to think about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that was the number one ask is like, just tell me what to order and I'll do it. And I'm like, all right. And so then I eventually just kind of kept taking notes on that and put it together, and that was kind of the genesis of this.
Yeah, and essentially, like, it's giving you a base system to follow, and it's not, again, it's not this miracle pill that's you're gonna or miracle guide that's just gonna teach you and you're gonna instantly lose it. But we try to make it literally the next best thing and make it as easy as possible. And so, like, one of the things that I think I'm the most proud of, I've always been really proud of this is this the presence of this tier list, where essentially Casey spent so much time looking through the local restaurants all around Los Angeles specifically, but it can be broadly applicable to wherever you guys are if you guys focus a lot on takeout. All of the restaurants, put them into tiers, and then we can go into a little bit more depth of what some of those things look like in the next slides. But what's a high calorie option, what's a low calorie option, what's a high protein option, how do you actually optimize all those decisions if and when you want to order food. And then there's also things like, hey, well, I am eating and preparing some food for my own. How do I build the actual plates, right? How do I actually build these unique or plates for specific times of the day? And this is your anytime plate. But in the book itself, there's also or guide itself, there's also other times that you can optimize for as well. And it's all based again on our experience or Casey's experience working with a lot of the gaming and esports based populations. And so this is something that he's helped. I don't know if you guys know any of these individuals, but DDK, who's works in the esports space as a broadcaster. And Casey, you can probably really briefly go over some of the things that you helped these individuals with.
Yeah, so I got to work with the 100T at large, and the Valorant team specifically that DDK was working with was the most interested in their nutrition, and I would say the most bought in. And we did a bunch of testing pre and post season, and they had rather shocking results. And like there wasn't a single person on the team who said they got worse. Every single person without fail was like, I have more energy. I am able to actually do this crazy schedule that you guys have forced us to do. We actually, I have some of the data. I'm not allowed to share it, but their body composition, like collectively, they lost quite a bit of fat and built some muscle. And from the organizational side, they were really happy because there was so much less food waste in the previous seasons. The team managers would try to order food for them, and like they just get thrown in the garbage, and then the players would end up ordering their own thing from Uber Eats. So it was pretty fun to work with, and DDK was the GOAT. He's actually at an event right now, commentating, I think for CS. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. You guys should go check him out right now. Yeah, I've worked, like I said, I used to work in traditional sports. I've worked with pro players in many different sports, and one of the ones that I'll call out is baseball. So just a fun little sidebar. We have a problem in nutrition literature for esports, which is we need a good control group, and we don't have a good control group because the average American brain is very different than the average gamer brain. The average gamer and cognitive worker is a finely tuned machine, and there's no corresponding brain type. And so the researchers were kind of stumped, who are we going to use as the control group? And some smart researchers in Japan actually figured out that most of the same quirks of a cognitive worker or esports athlete that are enhanced in them are also enhanced in a baseball player. And so baseball athletes are actually the controlled brain for the good nutrition literature these days. And you can kind of think about it like their reaction time has to be faster than anyone else. Like if you ever do the math on like how much time they actually have to perceive the ball coming at them and to analyze it, think about it, and then decide what they're going to do and then actually swing, that time gap is in milliseconds. It is so small. So yeah, you just need good hand-eye coordination, reaction time. Anyway, Jack, great guy, professional pitcher, got him a bunch of recovery and everything. Closer to home, we have Asian Jeff. He's a streamer. I was helping him out. He basically was reporting a lot of that same brain fog that Mick was, and literally within like 2 weeks. I don't like to make promises, so don't take this to mean too much. But within 2 weeks, he had some pretty. He was reporting to me like some pretty massive improvements, and it felt really nice to get results that quickly. But yeah, within 2 weeks he was already losing weight, and on the streamer side, his schedule was kind of nuts. So go check him out if you want to, because he's a cool kid and he's just trying to get better.
Yeah, and then essentially like the similar results with a lot more people. We already went over Mick,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so here's again, like these are the actual things you get inside, right? We have how you can turn takeout into actual fuel. You get snack list, meal prep tips, some bonus content inside. You get to actually access Casey directly in our Discord, so you get a special role, and there's a private channel where you can ask some questions. And so I think like that's one of the more valuable bonuses, because you essentially get a dietitian in your pocket. And basically just like what to order at, right? Like we want to still support the lifestyle that you guys want to have, and part of that is going out, eating with your friends, spending time with your friends. And so part of the process is, hey, you start by establishing your basic needs. You use that macro calculator. There's some guidance here about what each of those do and what the role is and of those macronutrients specific to you guys as gamers. And then you really learn how to track your own, build your own plates from any time to post workout, to utilizing like a quick reference of your hand size and how much you actually need to eat for each respective food type, right? And so this is like one of the best things I learned in terms of like the hand size reference on how to portion out things. But this is what I was mentioning with regards to the takeout, right? You get these really great suggestions for the things that are local to you, and you can while it may not be the exact same, even if you're in a different area, there's probably going to be similar restaurants that you can look for these same meals in your local area. So it's like there will be a potentially like a poke place that you can order from, or a Chipotle style place, or a grill type place that you can look from and order from, and then you can look for these specific meals to make better decisions about what you can eat, right? And then essentially, hey, we can customize your plan, whether it be through conversations with Casey in the Discord, and then really just knowing the when and how to integrate snacks into your diet. And normally it is $69.99, but we are with this just this masterclass, and for the people that are sticking around, where it's only going to be $29.99, and there are these extra bonuses that we're throwing in to make sure you guys get the most out of your tool, and one of them being how do you fast, because this is one of the more common, I think, or one of the more common questions or diets that individuals ask Casey about, because it's sort of akin to like the not eating approach, but can you do it more intentional and smart way. So Casey put together a mini fasting guides for those that want to integrate this into your actual diet, and so it covers some of these things like, hey, what is time TRF or time restricted feeding, alternate day fasting, what's the 5-2 fast, and basically how do you choose whatever fasting diet fits your lifestyle. And so this is just included. If you guys get it, this is in it. And then, like I said, you get private Discord access. Once you buy it, you get access to a Fuel Squad role, and then you'll have this private channel where you can message us, ask questions, and get some support on this entire process. And as a part of it, if it doesn't help you guys in any way, we also have a money back guarantee. So if after you guys try, his plan, his takeout guide for 30 days, and you aren't satisfied for any reason, you look in there and you're like, there's not enough pictures of Casey then inside this book or guide, then I'm done. I was looking for really special pictures of Casey where he was eating, where he has his fork, maybe, yeah, just like, what his pantry looks like. If there's not enough of those, then yeah, just ask us, DM us, and we'll give you your money back, no questions asked. And so again, I'm going to just drop the link in the chat. If you guys are interested, just check it out. There's more information on the page itself. And we want to, again, leave time and room for questions here. Let's go over the questions. We have, I don't know, maybe like 5 to 10 minutes for some questions. Anything you guys want to ask us regarding health, nutrition, exercise, anything. And while you guys sort of ask some questions, or even asking about the product itself, feel free. I'm going to be doing my banded pullovers because, I want to make sure I kind of undo some of the stress of sitting during this time. And yeah, you can see Casey's doing it too with that picture.
I am.
I'm
doing my.
He's clearly doing it in this picture. But yeah, do you guys have any questions? So Ipsusu says, what are some of the simplest to prepare / prep high satiety foods? I know you said protein, but anything other than just chicken or something. Oops.
Yeah. So protein and fiber are the two most satiating nutrients that you want to index into. And there are a couple subtypes of foods that have independent satiety indices. So interestingly, on the carb side, one of the most, by far, satiety-inducing foods is just the plain old potato. So that takes no effort, really. You just pop it in the oven and then you kind of eat it, right? But you can't layer it up with a bunch of like sour cream and bacon bits and stuff like that. You got to make it just the plain potato. I challenge you to eat as many plain potatoes as you can. You're not going to get very far. As far as actual simple meal prep ideas, though, I'm a fan of like no-step processes, which is maybe a separate guide that I could probably make. But things like just buy a rotisserie chicken at the start of a week, buy 2 rotisserie chickens, right? Like
Costco?
that's
if you guys have a form of Costco wherever you guys are.
Yeah. Like that's super easy. It's pre-made, and you just literally eat that whenever you want. There's a lot of like pre-made, just microwavable frozen veg, or not even frozen, or like refrigerated veg that you can buy, and you just zap it in the microwave. You have that with some rotisserie chicken. Literally, 60-second meal prep, and you're having something that's healthy. If you need other like no-step ideas, yogurt's a good protein. Protein bars, protein products are fine. Fresh fruit is pretty easy. Potatoes, I find, are probably some of the easiest things to bake and prep that way. Veg, just get the stuff that's steamable in the bags, pre-made, ready to go. And honestly, it's not that bad. On the protein side, you can also get, the other things that I like are the like cans of so this was when I was really lazy back in college. I just buy the cans of chicken and tuna, and then you just squirt in like some mustard and maybe some chopped up onions if you're feeling fancy, and that'll get you sitting right pretty well. So yeah, I think those are all good. The other thing that I'm a fan of doing too, if you're willing to put in a little bit of extra time, is just a big old massive smoothie. Just throw everything in there, and it's like a one and done. You throw in some frozen fruit, some frozen veg, you throw in like some Greek yogurt, you throw in your nuts and seeds, you throw in like literally everything in there, and you will can very easily get up to like a 500 to like 1,000 calorie smoothie if you're just putting everything in there, and it can be a full meal. So yeah, those are probably the easiest, I would say, and then past that you might actually have to turn on your oven.
Okay, yeah. I think, is there like a spreadsheet of common foods and their relative satiety?
I don't have that, but I just have the research study. It was done in like the 90s. I can probably make something like that. On the protein side, the fatty fish ranked highest for satiety, so eat more seafood. Potatoes and popcorn and like whole grains ranked really high for the carbs.
And then things like nuts and seeds that had high fiber content on the fat side also ranked high on the fat side.
My questions are above, but a particular question. Lowering your ghrelin when you have a lot of hunger, and plus, do you actually need actual clinical supervision to fast when you're past a weight cap? And then Ipsusu says, yeah, well, I have tins of mackerel quite often.
Mackerel's literally my favorite fish of all fish. Okay, so sorry. Well, the question was, do you need medical supervision to fast? The human is pretty resilient, but if you've never done a fast before, it's always better to be safe the first time around. So typically, if I've had someone who's never done any kind of fasting protocol, what I would usually recommend is you start small and you build up. So what I mean by that is maybe you start with just, okay, I'm going to have a 14-hour fasting window, or maybe even a 12-hour fasting window. And then you just kind of slowly inch that down. Maybe you get down to 8 hours and you're like, okay, hey, I can do the 8-hour feed and 16-hour fast in a day. Maybe I go a little bit wild and try a 24-hour fast. And so you could do that kind of thing. And a 24-hour fast, by the way, means 24 hours. It doesn't mean one full day of no eating. So an example of how that could look is like you eat dinner today and then you start the clock and then you get to eat dinner again tomorrow at the same time. So, you do 24 hours and it's basically you'd be skipping 2 meals on that day. But we would incrementally build up to it. We would not just go hard into it. And I know there are these more aggressive fasting protocols like alternate day fasting or like 5-day fast, 10-day fast. And you definitely don't want to do those first. You need to really test and see how your body responds to those because with these slightly longer fasts, like 24 to 72-hour fasts, the body can have some negative reactions, and you don't necessarily need medical supervision. But if you have tried it out before, I think it's good that you let people know what's going on. And anyway, if you have some specific questions about that, though, depending on what your clinical status is, I mean, just hit me up and I can try to help.
Yeah.
I can't remember what his other question was, though.
Yeah, the last question, and you can feel free to DM Casey, but basically, he says, oh yeah, the content he was at, because he got here a little later, focus on what kind of weight loss, small, intermediate, large, because he actually has 60 kgs to lose, which is quite considerable. And he mentioned that he developed obesity throughout childhood and teenage years, and so that's sort of like overview. I think it's pretty broad, but maybe you can offer some of your thoughts and then we can go from there.
Yeah, so on average, if you're trying to lose 60 kgs, that is a pretty sizable amount that you are trying to lose. So the nice thing about having a lot to lose is that you can actually go a little bit more aggressive on the front end, and the body's a little bit more forgiving. So you can endure larger deficits, and you can also endure the diet for longer periods of time before you need a diet break. So that's the upshot to it, is that it comes off a little bit quicker than someone who's just a teeny tiny bit overweight. Usually, I would say for someone like that, maybe you're looking at close to maybe like 1% of your total body weight per week is reasonable to lose. But it would kind of depend on what your activity levels are and if you have any other clinical conditions as well. So again, that might be a better question to DM me, and I can help you out with that. But the short is, based off of where you're starting, we will dictate your rate of weight loss as a function of that, in order to make sure that your body can tolerate it well and maintain all of the lean tissue, because we don't want to be losing organs and muscle and bone and tendons and stuff when you're losing weight. We just want to lose fat, right? So in order to do that, you can't go too hard. If you go on a crash diet, usually what ends up happening is people will lose a whole bunch of lean tissue and not a whole lot of fat tissue, and then that feels pretty bad. So yeah, you still want to be a little bit more buttoned up than the crash diets, but you can certainly be more aggressive than the 0.5 pound to 1.5 pound rate that I listed out before.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it. Maybe as a last thing, let me drop this link in the chat for, if you guys do want to work directly with Casey, you know, and you guys want to just have him build something for you and work directly with you on this, you guys can go fill out this form, and then we can get back to you guys about, you know, potentially setting up something with him, and he can go, you know, we can go over with you guys all the details are about his services are here as well. So let me just drop that into the chat, the nutrition consult. But again, if not, you know, if you guys want to try it on your own, then go ahead and get this top tier takeout. And thank you guys for checking in. And if what this recording is going to be edited and cut up into probably a 3-part email series that we'll probably blast out in the next week or so. But yeah, thank you guys again. That's anything else you want to add, Casey?
No, I just want to say thank you for letting me talk about nutrition, and I genuinely do want to help people. So if anyone seriously has any questions, shoot me a message, and I'll do whatever's within my power and time constraints to do what I can to help you out. I am really passionate about this, so I do want to help people get results. And you know, if there's anything I can do, or if you have any ideas about stuff that I can make, you know, so maybe the meal prep idea was something that I can make, like a quick little guide, or maybe like a table on satiety indices. You know, those kind of ideas are great for me to hear. So please keep those kind of ideas coming, and I'll see what I can do to make.
Yeah, and you know, if you guys have more questions, just join our Discord. Drop it in the hashtag nutrition channel. And you know, when Casey has the time in his really busy day, we're both dads, so you know, sometimes it does. We have other dietitians and physical therapists in there that are going to be helping out with the community a bit more. So, you know, definitely join up. And thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you guys all hopefully very soon.
Yeah. Sorry for the camera issues, by the way, but thank you, everybody.